Hey guys, what's up? It's Drew here. Quick video blog. I wanted to talk today about Nipsey Hussle, and I also wanted to talk about, crime in the black community, and how, you know, not only it's perceived that many communities or the media or just in general in America, it's perceived by many that black lives are seen as disposable, which I don't necessarily take in that narrative. I don't believe in that narrative, but I do believe that, not to the black community at large, but I do believe that within the black community, there's an element that views life as disposable. I really do, because, regardless of the thing with Nipsey Hussle, all right, he's basically, the news has come out that it was somebody that he knew that shot him. The person said that, or alleged that Nipsey called him a snitch and whatnot. And, I'm not a street person, but I know that if you're in the streets and you get called a snitch and people identify you as a snitch and you're involved in gang-related activity, it's as good as a death sentence. So by Nipsey putting that out there and putting that vibe out there, I guess the person felt like, well, listen, if you're gonna put a death sentence on me, I'm gonna put one on you. And the guy went out. I'm not justifying it, but the guy went out there, and then the guy shot him in front of his own store. That's the only thing I could see. That's the only way I could see how that guy. That's the only angle I can see here. I may be incorrect. I may not be right about this, but that's how I could see it. Now, either way, I think that both lives were not disposable. The shooter made his choice, but Nipsey also made his choice as well, if this is the case. I thought Nipsey was and I still think he was, a very positive, uplifting, forward-thinking brother. But at the same time, I feel like if he was doing so well, he was Grammy nominated, he's all over the place, he's got his own store. If he's doing so well, why stay involved with street culture? You can be involved with street culture without being in the streets. Why hang around people who carry guns specifically to harm people? Why hang around people who would off somebody for being called a snitch? Why hang around that? If you're leaving that, you got to leave it. You got to leave it behind. The Bible says that there was this thing where God was getting rid of a town. I think it has to do with Sodom and Gomorrah. He was getting rid of a town because the town was absolutely evil. And he said not to look back or you'll turn into a pillar of salt, something like that. And, a lady looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt. I feel like that's exactly what happened in Nipsey Hussle's case. He was on his way out of those evil ways, of those evil deeds. He had a good soul, good spirit, and he was building that. But the fact of the matter is that when God gives you a chance to correct your life, you have to correct it. When he gives you a chance to escape evil, you have to escape it. You have to escape it. This doesn't only have to do with crime. This doesn't only have to do with crime. It has to do with lust, all the sins that befall men. It has to do with all of that. It has to do with lust. It has to do with crime. It has to do with, vengeance, anger, gluttony. When God gives you a chance to escape death, when God gives you a chance to escape these consequences, when God gives you a chance to shine brightly, take that chance seriously. Take that covenant seriously. Take that promise, that deal seriously. Because when God gives you a chance, it's not to say that God will retract his deal from you personally, but when God gives you a covenant, you gain his protection, you gain his favor. But by the same token, the laws of the spiritual realm are such that if you continue to sin, you continue to go back to your old ways, you are now providing legal ground for evil to come after you. You are now providing legal ground for evil to operate in your life. And I'm not saying that's exactly what happened to Nipsey Hussle, but I think it's possible. Like, that's the discernment that I'm getting in my spirit right now. I think it's possible. And I think that even though he was cognizant of these things, I think that his flesh or his soul was pulling him away from the higher calling of his spirit. I think that his flesh and his soul was pulling him back towards this street code, street honor mentality. So he had a snitch in his midst, or an unfavorable person, or a Judas in his midst. And instead of separating himself from that Judas and fleeing, he chose to stand his ground. He chose to operate boldly and express publicly in front of other people that this man was a snitch. Now, if you know that you're hanging around murderers, you're hanging around people who don't value life and will willingly take it, not just beat you down, not just cause you pain to teach you a lesson, but take your life and come back and finish off shots to make sure that you're dead. If you're hanging around such people, you cannot afford to misstep. You cannot afford to call such people a snitch. You cannot afford to put yourself in a position where that person feels that you are a threat to their life. Because if it ever turns into a situation where it's your life versus theirs, they will gladly choose their life and take their life over yours, like most people would, and they will gladly take your life without even a second thought. So you have to think about that. You know, you have to think about that. And I feel like Nipsey Hussle, being a street dude with inner wisdom, knowledge of self, and all these things, he saw it coming. But at the time, and even if it was for a split second, at the time, he valued the street code. He valued the honor of the street code over going home to his wife for a minute, for a second. And for that split second, he made himself open to attack. What did you think would happen? I'm not siding with the murderer. I think what the murderer did was a heinous crime. I think what the murderer did will chase the murderer around. I think the murderer will get bad karma, or will get, I mean, you can't take a life without evil following you everywhere you go. You can't. So at the end of the day, that guy will get what's coming to him. But on Nipsey's side, I think that what Nipsey invited into his household, when he knows he's got a relationship, he's got every reason. You know, God gave him a beautiful woman, beautiful career, potential, good friends, families, associates. God gave him all these things, and instead of him fleeing, he stepped back into those things for just 1 second. And that 1 second changed the whole trajectory of his life by ending it. You see, and then people will look at God and say, how could God let such a thing happen? God gives man free will. Nipsey Hussle, I think the guy is an amazing revolutionary guy. I think he woke minds up. I think he was a humble dude, but he made a certain choice. And that choice was of his own free will. And that choice led to another man using their free will to take his life. So all the spiritual blessings, all the spiritual protection that God put around this man, God will not stand in front of a man's free will. God will not protect a man from consequences of it. Sometimes he does, but God will not allow you to stick your hand in fire and not get burned at the end of the day. So, you know, as much as I respect Nipsey Hussle, and as much as I respect the things that he was doing, I think that his actions could have played a hand in his outcome. I think that he could have relocated that store anywhere He didn't have to be in the middle of the hood. He could have had that store anywhere. People would have respected it. People respected Nipsey Hussle's energy. They respected his mind. They respected the way he went about things. He didn't need to be in the middle of the hood. He didn't need to live amongst his enemies. He didn't need to out his enemies. He should have left that lifestyle behind, in my opinion. And I think he'd still be alive today. I'm saying this because I want people who are watching this to understand that you have choices. You can believe in God, you can be spiritual, you can be a loving individual, you can be humble, but you are not immune to the consequences of your choices and your free will. You're not. You know, at the end of the day, if Jesus could get stoned, if Jesus could get hung on a cross, the same thing can befall men. The same thing can befall us. You know, I'm not saying that Nipsey Hussle deserved it. I don't think he deserved it at all. But I'm saying that if he had taken different actions, he would still be alive today. His wife would still have a husband. His child would still have a father. That's what I'm saying. God gives us free will. But we must pray and we must ask for the wisdom and the intelligence to properly execute that free will. And that is all I got to say. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful day.